Good evening, everyone. Mr. Mohanty in the chair, my distinguished panelists, and an audience which has been captivating, and you've been really very, very patient. And I have the very, very honorable task to wrap up this conversation. So I'm sure all of you are waiting to see the last of me. So I'll try to make it as short and brief as possible. As far as Bhopal is concerned, this is virtually a third phase for me. I used to come to BHEL Bhopal quite often. Then after some time, this Bina refinery for BPCL was being constructed, so I was very actively involved. And in the morning, the mayor remarked that you can come to Bhopal, but it is very difficult to leave it. So maybe that is the pull which keeps pulling me back here. And it is indeed a very, very beautiful city. Excuse me. So I think enough has been said about the various facets of a smart city. I'll only begin by a newspaper clipping which I saw yesterday. The Economist came out with a statement yesterday that out of 137 cities which they interviewed, and they have come out with a list of cities, and unfortunately there is no city in India which is in the top 5 cities. But also it is a very fortunate thing, because every cloud has a silver lining. We are also not there in the bottommost 5 list. So at least we have that satisfaction that we are not in the bottom, but we have a lot of catching up to do. So I'm sure with the initiative which the government has taken to make 100 smart cities, a lot of work will be done in the country, and we have a lot of tall tasks ahead of us. The driver for smart cities, the concept is all known. The Prime Minister gave this clarion call, and the country is now galvanized. And the thing is that the pace of migration, as you already heard in the morning, is quite fast. And by 2050, a lot of more than 50% migration will be there, and urbanization will be there. What also we discussed in the morning sometime was that the GDP growth in urban areas is much, much larger. Nearly 70% of the GDP growth which a rural area can see. So from that perspective also, we feel that there is no other alternative but to go in for more and more smart cities, and it is also a quality of life which is of a great concern to all of us. These are the large numbers of the outlays: 48,000 crores for smart cities and 50,000 crores for the Amrut Yojana. And which means that it is a very large piece of pie, and everyone will be able to get something or the other out of it. But what we see is that people are usually very much focused on very small areas of the smart cities. The recent EOI which took place, out of that, as far as our organization is concerned, we have been able to get into 2 geographical areas. One is Uttar Pradesh and Uttaranchal, the other is the Northeast region. Based upon this EOI, a lot of consultants have been already selected. What I'll try to do is I'll make this presentation into a few very, very brief subheads, and I'll quickly take you from there. There are 4 pillars of a smart city which everyone knows. But in most of the cities which are already existing in the countries, most of the pillars are already crumbling. So we need to see all around us. We are talking of quality of life, employment, physical infrastructure, disaster management. So on any account that we see, we had a very recent case of an earthquake in Nepal. The kind of destruction which took place was monumental. So disaster management in this region is really not something which we are very actively focused upon. Economic infrastructure, social infrastructure, physical infrastructure, as well as institutional, all of them need a lot of effort to sustain themselves. The state of schools, colleges, hospitals, it's not something which we can boast about. The smart city is an intersection between competitiveness, capital, and sustainability. So all these functions will have an overlay on each other in order to make a city smart. The elements of a smart city are known to everyone: smart energy, smart water, buildings, infrastructure, mobility. But this is the problem which all of us have. We must all have heard that story of Panchtantra, where 5 blind men went and they saw an elephant. So each one of them could only touch a part of the elephant and try to understand and absorb what an elephant could be. The person who touched the legs of the elephant thought that it is something like the trunk of a tree. The one who touched the tail, he thought it's like a snake. The one who touched the trunk of the elephant, he thought maybe it's like a rope. The person who touched the stomach of the elephant, he had a feeling like it's a big wall. So what we talked right through the day also, people were talking of elements of a smart city in isolation. We talked of safety, we talked of mobility, we talked of infrastructure, we talked of water, we talked of sanitation. But what matters is the big picture. And like the 5 blind men could not understand an elephant, so that is the concept which most of the people have. Because people are operating in a very, very small zone of the smart city, so the big picture somehow eludes us. The MOUD has issued some guidelines for a smart city, and the planning for the smart city will have to focus around those guidelines. The guidelines were already last year, they were put up in the website of the MOUD. The submission of the challenges for the smart cities is the next thing which is on, and all cities are targeting. Also at this juncture of time, a lot of countries are also focused on the smart city challenge. A lot of investments have been the Prime Minister has had quite a lot of bilateral visits that has helped to engage various countries who are focused for financial outlays and to give solutions for smart cities. Also at this juncture, what we find is that most of the OECD countries, they are not having a very large GDP growth. Since they are not having a GDP growth in their countries, this is a very right time for us when they can be focused and help and support smart city building in our country. The Indian ministries which are involved in the smart city development include the Urban Development Ministry, IT, Power, Road Transports, Highways, Water Resources, Labor and Employment, HRD, Consumer Affairs, and other ULBs which may have overlapping responsibilities. This again brings us to the same 5 blind men and elephant philosophy, that who will integrate this kind of overlapping responsibilities, and in some cases the responsibilities may also be contradictory from ministry to ministry. Let's take the case of a project approach and a program management approach. What you see in red over here is a project approach. So in a project approach, there could be 5 or 6 or 7 projects. Let's presume that this is a pipeline. My predecessor talked of a 1400 kilometer pipeline just before me. So let's assume this is a 1400 kilometer pipeline which is split into 4 different projects. If we do not have a program manager for the project, then what is shown in red is a likely shape of the outcome of the project. But if there is a program manager which can synthesize all the 4 segments into one, you would have a much, much better unifying approach as shown in the diagram below. So this is what is very, very essential to follow, because there are so many interrelationships between various institutes, various ministries, various ULBs, and you have the environment controllers, you have the central pollution control board, state pollution control board. So all these engagements can only be done in case a unifying consultant is available. Matter of final conjecture. So at this juncture, what we feel is that it is very important that whatever consultant selection process is handled and how it is done, it should be certainly ensured that the consultants who come finally and who are selected for the CDPs, because the CDP is the basis of the entire project, it will hinge on what was at the bottom of the pyramid. So this is a very, very important task, and we should get the best consultants for our cities. This explanation I've just made distinction between a program management and a project management. Since you don't work in silos in a program manager's approach, the results are very holistic and much, much better than a project management approach. Over here again we can see a project management is virtually a subset of a program management approach, and this is the approach which we suggest should be followed for all the cities. A program management, the typical organogram looks as shown. The main thing is that you get the ULBs usually at the juncture do not have all the skill sets which are required. So in order to complement them, a program manager can offer these skill sets, and also the number of people may also be limited in a ULB. So this can be very well addressed by the program manager. The flow chart of a typical project implementation, we are virtually at the stage 1, which has a CDP and a master plan function to be carried out. Stage 2 could be a DPR, stage 3 could be the actual engineering, stage 4 could be the tendering, etc., and finally the implementation and O&M. In the PPP model, which is likely to be there, it has to be stage managed and steered by a program manager. There are a lot of avenues and different sectors which are there. Like sewerage itself, if we take into account, in the class 1 cities, we have nearly 30% coverage. In class 2 cities, only 10% networks are available, or treatment facilities. So this means a lot of work needs to be done. So all the avenues in all the sectors, there are a lot of capabilities available in the country, and the way forward is to go in to make studies, which is the CDP, have DFRs and DPRs. Have DFRs and DPRs, invite experts who are their domain experts, do the bids and execute and supervise. Finally, it will require the O&M implementation of all the fields, which would require architects, engineers, constructors, facility managers, equipment suppliers, system integrators, utility operators, etc. We as Engineers India, we have expertise in all the solution and all the facets of the smart city implementation. And we have nearly 3,300 engineers available with us to offer solutions. So what we can really do is, we have already made smart city concepts and layouts and plans. And in fact, for Rajasthan, we had already made a plan. And we also have made a plan for Bina. The refinery which we did for Bina, over there, we have plans that we can put up a petrochemical over there. And with the petrochemical plant, a smart city can also come up over there. Similarly, PCPIRs have been planned in the country. In the PCPIRs also, they have a lot of petroleum chemicals and petrochemical investment, and that could also spur smart cities all around that. Port-based logistic hubs also are there, like Vizag, etc., where smart cities are certainly going to be a reality soon. This is the book which we had released in 2010, which talked about smart cities when nobody in the country even was talking of smart cities. So finally, I would like to say that thanks for a very, very patient hearing, and I hope I limited myself to the minimum as I could. Thank you.